Australian beef exports to the UK could rise tenfold under a new trade agreement. Trade Minister Dan Tehan is confident he can secure a deal to the UK food market within 6 weeks. David McCredie, CEO of the Australian British Chamber of Commerce, joins me with the details. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Janie. How are you?
Very well indeed. So you had a big discussion yesterday with Dan Tehan, Minister for Trade, Tourism and Investment, for the first big deal since Brexit. What was discussed?
Yeah, look, we talked about quite a wide range of things. I think it's important to keep in context that agriculture is only a very small part of this deal. And in fact, the areas where we're going to see the biggest improvements for the Australia-UK relationship are really around services and investment in particular. Trade always gets it's poorly named a free trade agreement these days because actually that's a pretty small part of the picture. With global supply chains and the way things work nowadays, goods are important, don't get me wrong. I'm very keen to see passenger vehicle tariffs and Scotch whisky tariffs, as we've talked about before, removed, and tariffs going into the UK on the same basis. But I really think, and a lot of the discussion yesterday was really about ramping up the investment and the trade and services, which has obviously been crippled because we haven't been able to have people moving between our two countries over the last couple of years, over the last 12 months.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we've had the devastating floods here, and you said it's a small part of the trade. So where exactly does the agriculture fit in the UK market?
Yeah, look, for most things, I don't think we're all that competitive, being the other side of the world. And clearly, Australia has always had a keen interest in making sure that agriculture is a central tenet of many of our free trade agreements. Those have been mainly concluded with countries in our own region where it is actually feasible to send large quantities of beef or lamb to places like China, Korea, Japan, lots of the ASEAN nations, obviously part of the CPTPP. We send beef to the US. So we've got a lot of markets already across a wide range of geographies, sending more to the UK. We send very little to the UK. To quote the Financial Times yesterday, I think it was 1,100 tonnes, which was less than 0.5% of UK beef consumption. They get beef from Ireland, from France, the European Union. That's all tariff quota-free trade, of course, under the Trade and Cooperation Agreement. I'm not sure there's a huge amount of room for lots of Australian beef to flood the market. I think that's probably unlikely. But I think more important is the messaging that the UK is really an open global Britain. When you think back to Boris Johnson's speech at the beginning of last year, before the pandemic at Greenwich, he was really clear that this is an opportunity. Brexit and the emergence of a new global Britain that was keen to get out and trade freely with the rest of the world, to provide opportunities for British exporters to get out amongst markets like Australia, like other places in Asia, and of course, they're talking about the US as a free trade agreement possibility in the future as well. So I think that's really probably a better context for where this conversation's at the moment.
Boris Johnson obviously seems to be in favour of the post-Brexit trade deal with Australia. However, not everyone seems happy, though, David, due to it being potentially costly for British farmers and for North Ireland.
Look, Northern Ireland has a variety of small British, Northern Irish beef farmers, and they're obviously, like every other country that we've done a free trade agreement with, there's always a concern that, people will find it more challenging if there is more competition in the market. But as I just said, they already have lots of international competition from within the European Union on a tariff-free, quota-free basis. I don't really see a position where Australian beef grown on the other side of the world, having to be shipped to the UK, can be far more competitive than locally grown beef. And we're talking about substantive weights, those sorts of things. So there's all sorts of things that make the freight costs higher. I just don't see it being as much of an issue as perhaps the Northern Irish are being led to believe at this point in time.
And finally, David, Britain's COVID vaccine rollout, it's been known to be successful. More than 70% of UK adults have now will receive their first dose. And Matt Hancock, the Health Secretary, has certainly said it's one of the highest vaccine uptake rates in the world. 90% of people saying that they would or already have been vaccinated. A bit of a different story here. We're seeing reports of around 1/3 of people saying that they will potentially have the vaccine at this stage. But why have they been so successful with their rollout?
Well, I think it's important to keep the context again. The context in the UK is that COVID was rife in the community. There were large numbers of people being infected. There were large numbers of people indeed dying and going through intensive care and all of those processes. And the idea of having a vaccine that stops you from being very ill, very few cases wind up in hospital, and certainly very few from that on into intensive care. I don't think we've had any deaths from people who have been vaccinated. So if you're in an environment where people are dying, clearly you're going to be highly motivated to prevent yourself from falling into that terrible path. Here in Australia, we've done a great job in basically eradicating the virus. But the problem is that if we want to get back to the sorts of enjoyable pastimes that we're used to in the past, whether that's going for business or pleasure to overseas destinations, we need to find a way to engage with the virus, because it's going to be there. That means we need to vaccinate. And I think, importantly, we can't just rest on our laurels here. We've seen a number of small outbreaks. We've done a great job so far in containing it. The reality is, going forward, there will be more outbreaks. It doesn't matter how good your quarantine system is. It's not going to be completely infallible. So vaccination is, without doubt, the best and safest way for us to move forward as a country. So I encourage everybody to get out there and have a vaccination.
Have you had your jab yet, David?
I'm too young still. I'm registered and I'm waiting to get the call, but I'm certainly ready to go.
All right. David McCredie, CEO of the Australian British Chamber of Commerce. Always great to hear your insights and great to see you.
Thanks, Joni. Cheers.